Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. In the first 2 days of NFL free agency, the Falcons filled their two biggest needs. They went and got Kirk Cousins in day one, and then they got him some help in Darnell Mooney, who is a guy that we talked about last week that was on our free agency wish list. Yes, Darnell Mooney, not exactly the sexiest numbers, under 500 yards receiving in the last 2 years, but the Bears threw the ball as little as anybody in the league. Justin Fields was one of the worst and most inaccurate passers in the league. Darnell Mooney is a guy who can get separation, and going from Justin Fields to Kirk Cousins as your quarterback, that's like a wide receiver's dream.
Yeah, they're paying him $13 million. Let's not pretend like they're paying him wide receiver one money. When you've got Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, and Drake London on rookie contracts, these are the luxuries that the Falcons are afforded. They can go and spend $13 million on a wide receiver too, which, by the way, is the going rate for a wide receiver too. I mean, you look around the league, you go look at the, a SPO tracker over the cap positional rankings, and he's in that same Gabe Davis wide receiver two market. And that's the fact is that's the going rate. And I think a guy like, Darnell Mooney, in terms of let's compare him to a Gabe Davis, is exponentially more valuable at that price point because he's never played with a guy like Josh Allen or Kirk Cousins who can actually get him the ball. I think the possibility of Darnell Mooney outperforming that contract compared to a guy like Gabe Davis with the Jaguars, who is not the Jaguars, the Jaguars. It's not even close. Like Darnell Mooney has a way higher ceiling with a guy like Kirk Cousins passing him the ball comparative to what Justin Fields is. So I don't understand why Falcons fans are, getting their panties in a wad about a guy. Yes, he didn't have he had 500 yards last year, 500 yards the year before. He also had 1,000 yards with Andy Dalton, Nick Foles, and Justin Fields throwing him passes in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, go look at the numbers that the Minnesota wide receivers put up during Kirk Cousins'
or even just the wide receiver twos.
Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison's kind of a similar player to Darnell Mooney, in my opinion, in terms of size and what they bring to the table. This is a guy that can get separation. He's going to be open. He was just missed at a consistent rate, which Falcons fans should be very familiar with. And that's kind of the reason why the Falcons probably didn't target Justin Fields, is because he's not accurate. He was missing guys that were wide open. Darnell Open was getting as open as any wide receiver. He was up there with the tops in terms of getting open. They were just not getting him the ball. Kirk Cousins, if there's one thing he can do, for all his faults, you can talk about the age, the Achilles, and blah, yada, yada, yada. He gets his receivers the ball. Like, they get involved, and Darnell Mooney is going to be a nice piece, and he might not even be the
wide receiver two. Yeah, just about to say that.
Roman Malik Neighbors. I don't think this takes them out of the running for those guys. Because they could be the best player available, and stacking this offense. I know everyone wants to get defense, and yes, maybe it is Jared Verse or Dallas Turner or a trade down. But if Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze is there, they're likely going to be the best player available. And I do not see the Falcons passing on him. It doesn't matter. They just wanted to fill this need because, as we've seen with Terry Fontenot constantly in the past, and it's how you should operate, you want to fill out your holes before the draft because you don't want to have any glaring ones where you feel like you got to reach for a guy. And that's what this contract is. And this offense looks 100 times better now that Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney are in the fold.
Yeah, I think what you just said there is very important, that just because they signed Darnell Mooney doesn't mean that takes them out of the running for Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze. In fact, I think that nothing's changed. On the new league year is today on Wednesday, 4 p.m. I fully expect them to go and get a corner, an edge, and probably a safety, and then that's going to be that. And then they're going to go, there'll be other minor depth signings, and then they're going to go into the draft. And, if they're top guys there at 8, it could be a lineman, it could be an edge, it could be a wide receiver, it could be a cornerback, it can be any position. That is the point. For any Falcons fans that think that, the Kirk Cousins signings, Darnell Mooney signings, any other signings dictates one way or the other the Falcons are going to do in the draft, you're absolutely wrong. Or you just maybe haven't been watching what they've done each offseason. Like, at first, I was a non-believer that Terry Fontenot was going to be a best player available guy. And then he selected Kyle Pitts. And I was like, okay, maybe not. And then Drake London. And then Bijan. I don't know what more you have to see to believe that is, if Malik Neighbors is their top guy and he's there, they're going to take him. It doesn't matter, like, And that goes for any position at all. I don't know what people are watching, or like just because they opted to sign a guy like Kirk Cousins and signaling that win now mode, now they have to surround Kirk Cousins. That's not true either. Like, it doesn't matter what the position is. Terry Fontenot seems very, very, very strict best player available. Like, I don't know what else he has to do to prove it. He took a running back 8th overall.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I am salivating over the fact at possibly getting Malik Neighbors. Like, I don't understand how people can't see that vision. Like, to me, Malik Neighbors in this offense with Darnell Mooney as your wide receiver 3, Drake London as your wide receiver 2, Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, maybe the best 1-2 punch in the NFL in terms of running back tandems, a great offensive line. And then now you have Kirk Cousins. I mean, that is as good as it gets, man. I mean, that is really, really, I mean, look around the league. Is there anything as good as that in terms of offensive personnel from top to bottom?
Even away from that, like, just having a balanced roster gives Fontenot the chance to do something like that, or to get a guy like Dallas Turner or Jared Verse to kind of put that defensive line maybe over the top. The whole point of free agency for the Falcons has always been to fill roster holes as much as you could. Obviously, it's not going to work out a ton. A lot of the marquee edge rushers are now off the board with Danielle Hunter going to Houston. But that doesn't mean the Falcons can't add that next tier guy to at least just balance the rotation. That way, they don't need to get a guy like Dallas Turner or Jared Verse or another guy in the second round. So it's all up to you what you think the best player available is. That's where your argument should be. Not, oh, well, the Falcons, they signed this wide receiver, now we got to go defense. No, if you think that Jared Verse and Dallas Turner are better prospects than Malik Neighbors, first, you're wrong. Secondly, then you have an argument that that's what the Falcons would do. That's where everybody's argument should stem from. This prospect is better overall than this prospect, and that's why the Falcons are going to draft this guy.
Yeah, I actually think that it's more likely, and this is just my opinion on the prospects, it's more likely that the Falcons trade out of the pick and draft a defensive player 8th overall. I know everyone's like, oh, this is all signaling that we're going to go defense in the draft. And yes, that very well may be the case. We certainly could use some defense, but I just don't exactly love the defensive prospects. I don't love Dallas Turner. I don't love Jared Verse. And first of all, those guys aren't going to step in and be like star pass rushers as rookies. Like, that is so rare. I mean, even Will Anderson, like, he was really good. He's not a star pass rusher. It takes a lot of time for these guys to develop, and those guys aren't even close to what Will Anderson was in college.
Yeah, and I think, a couple more names that could hit the market that, you're not seeing the Danielle Hunters, the Bryce Huffs, or two
interest in Hunter.
Stopgaps. A Joey Bosa or a Khalil Mack that is not going to be that long-term guy, but still put you in a position come draft time where you don't need to address the edge room. So I think that's those two guys you should keep an eye on. And by the time you see this, maybe they have signed him at that point. But I think the main thing you should take away from this particular segment is, if you're arguing needs or draft picks because of needs, we need to kind of wrap our head around now that is not how Terry Fontenot drafts. He's going to take the best player available, even if it's a quarterback. Drake May falls, I bet they take Drake May.
We got to go to break. I do want to talk about the Falcons salary cap moves, what they could potentially do, and how they could potentially do it. Big Low Country is going to join us later in the show.